Question 1. In the context of an HVACR inspection for a newly installed commercial air conditioning system, Inspector is Callahan observes that the branch circuit overcurrent protection device is rated at 50A, while the nameplate on the condensing unit indicates a maximum fuse or circuit breaker size of 40A. The installer argues that the 50A device is acceptable due to the feeder size and anticipated startup inrush current. What should is Callahan do? Situation A. Approve the installation since startup currents justify higher OPView ratings. B. Require the installer to provide manufacturer documentation validating the 50A OPTI. C. Reject the installation due to non-compliance with the unit's nameplate OPTI rating. D. Approve the installation if the wire size matches the 50A breaker capacity. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the installation due to non-compliance with the unit's nameplate OPT rating. Explanation. Per NEC 440.22a, the branch circuit, short circuit and ground fault protective device must not exceed the maximum rating marked on the equipment nameplate. The manufacturer's listing and labeling take precedence unless otherwise justified by engineering documentation. Even if the wire supports higher amperage, exceeding the nameplate rating compromises equipment protection and violates NEC 110.3b, which mandates compliance with listed instructions. Question 2. From the perspective of HVACR inspectors reviewing electrical load calculations during plan review for a mixed-use facility, what is the most appropriate action if the total HVAC load was not included in the service sizing? A. Accept the plans if the lighting and receptacle loads justify the service capacity. B. Approve the plans if demand factors were correctly applied elsewhere. C. Reject the plans and request a revised load calculation including HVAC equipment. D. Accept the omission if rooftop units have separate feeders. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the plans and request a revised load calculation including HVAC equipment. Explanation. As per NEC 220.40 and NEC 220.50, all loads, particularly non-coincident ones like HVAC, must be included in the service calculation. The omission of significant HVAC loads would result in undersized service capacity, risking overload and safety violations. Even if rooftop units are separately fed, they must still be factored into the overall building service calculation unless served by separate service entirely. Question 3. Mr. Hassan, an HVAC contractor, installs a line voltage thermostat for an electric furnace. During inspection, Kendrick notes the thermostat's conductor insulation is rated at 6 didig, but the connected breaker is 40A and the wire run is in hot attic. What action should Kendrick take? A. Require replacement of conductors with insulation rated for 9 didig. B. Approve if ampacity meets 6 didig table values for the conductor size used. C. Condemn the entire installation due to thermal derating violations. D. Accept the thermostat wiring as is due to its control nature. Answer. Correct answer. A. Require replacement of conductors with insulation rated for 9 didig. Explanation. According to NEC 310.15b3c and Table 310.16, ambient temperature adjustments are necessary in hot attics. If the conductors are exposed to high temperatures and rated only 6 didig, derating can cause the ampacity to fall below required levels, leading to overheating. NEC 110.14c mandates that conductor ampacity be based on the lowest temperature rating of any termination or conductor involved, unless otherwise stated. Question 4. By evaluating a refrigeration equipment installation, Inspector Tran observes that the control circuit for the low-pressure switch is sharing a neutral conductor with lighting circuit in a commercial walk-in freezer. What is the correct course of action? A. Allow the installation as long as overcurrent protection is shared. B. Approve it only if an isolated neutral is installed for each system. C. Require separation of control and lighting circuits on different neutrals. D. Accept the configuration if the neutral is sized adequately. Answer. Correct answer. C. Require separation of control and lighting circuits on different neutrals. Explanation. Per NEC 300.3b, all conductors of a circuit, including the grounded neutral conductor, must be grouped together to avoid induced currents Sharing neutrals across unrelated systems like lighting and controls can create objectionable current paths leading to voltage imbalances, nuisance tripping, or malfunctions. Especially in refrigeration systems, precision and isolation of control circuits are critical for safe operation. Question 5. The growing trend in smart thermostats and low-voltage controls has increased the use of Class II circuits in HVACR. What NEC requirement must be observed when routing Class II thermostat wiring through metal studs? A. Ensure the conductors are jacketed and supported every 10 feet. B. Install bushings or grommets to prevent abrasion at metal openings. C. Use conduit regardless of the voltage class. D. Route wiring separately from power wiring at all times. Answer. Correct answer. B. Install bushings or grommets to prevent abrasion at metal openings. Explanation. As stated in NEC 300.4b1 and 725.24, Class II circuit wiring must be protected from physical damage when routed through metal studs or framing. Abrasion protection, grommets, bushings is essential to prevent insulation breakdown due to sharp edges. These circuits don't always conduit, but physical protection is mandatory where damage is likely. Question 6. Hysteronil, during installation of a heat pump system in a medical facility, bonds the metal conduit directly to the system ground without using listed fittings. During inspection, Mr. Salgado questions the effectiveness of the bonding method. What should Mr. Salgado conclude? A. The method is acceptable if continuity is verified with a tester. B. The installation violates NEC and requires a listed bonding fittings. C. Grounding is not necessary for non-current carrying parts. D. The bonding is compliant as long as the conduit is metallic. Answer. Correct answer. B. The installation violates NEC and requires our listed bonding fittings. Explanation. According to NEC 250.92 B and 250.96, metal conduit must be bonded using listed devices to ensure effective fault current paths. Field fabricated bonding without approved fittings lacks reliability and violates all listing requirements. Even if continuity is verified, the long-term integrity and fault clearing capabilities are uncertain without listed bonding components. Question 7. Through careful analysis of a rooftop HVACR unit installation, Inspector Liang finds that the disconnecting means is mounted 10 feet away across a service hatch. The installer claims this meets the within sight requirement. What should Inspector Liang determine? A. Approve the installation due to reasonable proximity. B. Accept if lockable disconnect is used with signage. C. Reject the installation for failing to meet within sight from definition. D. Approve if the breaker is labeled inaccessible. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the installation for failing to meet within sight from definition. Explanation. NEC Article 100 defines within sight from as being visible and not more than 50 feet from the equipment. However, obstructions like walls, hatches, or barriers can invalidate visibility even within 50 feet. NEC 440.14 requires that disconnects for HVACR units be readily accessible and within sight with visual obstruction. Lockable disconnect is only permitted if not in sight under certain conditions and with signage. Question 8. In light of recent developments, inspectors have noticed increased usage of combination type of side breakers in HVACR branch circuits. What is the most appropriate application of AFSIS in HVACR wiring? A. They are required for all HVACR circuits regardless of occupancy. B. AFSIS are only required if the HVACR equipment is cord and plug connected. C. FSI protection is required for all branch circuits supplying outlets in dwelling units. D. FSI protection applies only to bedroom receptacle circuits. Answer. Correct answer. C. FSI protection is required for all branch circuits supplying outlets in dwelling units. Explanation. NEC 210.12a mandates FSI protection for all 120 single-phase 15 and 20 ampere branch circuits supplying outlets in dwelling unit areas, not just receptacles. If HVACR components are powered via such circuits, FSI applies. The rule is not limited to bedrooms. Dedicated HVACR equipment on 240 circuits is generally exempt unless it supplies an outlet used by other equipment. Question 9. During the process of inspecting control panel wiring for a large chiller, Inspector Silver notes that multiple control conductors are terminated under a single screw terminal rated for one conductor. What action should Silver take? A. Allow it if the conductors are of the same size and type. B. Accept the connection if it passes torque testing. C. Reject the connection and require individual terminals for each conductor. D. Approve if the terminal is within an enclosure. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the connection and require individual terminals for each conductor. Explanation. NEC 110.14a requires that terminals be used only in accordance with their listing. Most terminals are rated for one conductor unless specifically listed otherwise. Using a terminal for more conductors than rated can cause overheating or loose connections. All standards also prohibit such practice unless labeled, regardless of enclosure protection. Question 10. Taking into account a multi-zone HVAC system with multiple compressors sharing a common panel, which of the following is required by NEC when identifying each compressor branch circuit? A. Labels on conductors only. B. Identification by color code only. C. Marking at the termination point and disconnect. D. No identification is needed if all conductors are in the same panel. Answer. Correct answer. C. Marking at the termination point and disconnect. Explanation. Per NEC 440.4b, each compressor must be clearly identified at the point of termination and at any associated disconnecting means. This helps prevent confusion during servicing and ensures safe operation. Color coding alone is not sufficient unless documented. Labeling enhances troubleshooting and reduces the risk of servicing the wrong circuit. Question 11. While conducting an inspection of a split-system air conditioner in a multifamily dwelling, Inspector Perez notes that the feeder supplying the outdoor unit lacks an equipment grounding conductor. The installer claims the metal conduit fulfills this requirement. How should the inspector respond? A. Accept the installation only if the conduit is continuous and approved as a grounding path. B. Require installation of a separate green grounding conductor. C. Condemn the feeder and require full rewiring to current code. D. Approve the installation if the conduit is less than 6 feet in length. Answer. Correct answer. A. Accept the installation only if the conduit is continuous and approved as a grounding path. Explanation. According to NEC 250.118, certain types of metal conduit M to M/C are permitted as equipment grounding conductors if properly installed and continuous. However, flexible metal conduit FMC may only be used if it meets specific criteria, length, bonding, etc. Continuity is verifiable and the conduit type is listed in 250.118. No separate conductor is needed. Question 12. Inspector Singh observes that the disconnect switch for a 5-ton rooftop HVAC unit is mounted 6 inches from a parapet wall with the cover opening toward the obstruction, limiting the workspace. Which NEC provision applies to determine compliance? A. Approve the installation if the panel remains accessible with the cover open. B. Accept the clearance due to rooftop location exemption. C. Reject the installation for violating required working space clearance. D. Approve if the switch is lockable in the open position. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the installation for violating required working space clearance. Explanation. Per NEC 110.26, the electrical equipment must have sufficient working space to permit safe operation and maintenance. Even outdoors or on rooftops, this requirement applies. Obstructions that limit access or restrict the cover from opening fully violate code. Rooftop installations are not exempt from minimum clearance requirements unless otherwise noted. Question 13. An HVACR inspector is reviewing the installation of a packaged unit where the nameplate indicates the equipment is listed for use with copper conductors only, but aluminum conductors have been installed. What is the correct code-based enforcement action? A. Approve the installation if antioxidant compound is used. B. Condemn the wiring and require copper conductors per nameplate. C. Accept if the aluminum is terminated on curated lugs. D. Require GSEI protection to compensate for conductor differences. Answer. Correct answer. B. Condemn the wiring and require copper conductors per nameplate. Explanation. NEC 110.3 3. B. Requires installation to follow the equipment's listing and labeling. If the nameplate specifies copper-only, aluminum conductors are not permitted, even with Coologs or antioxidant compound. Violating manufacturer listing invalidates till approval and poses serious safety risks. Question 14. During a retrofit inspection, Inspector Zheng notices that a variable refrigerant flow VRF indoor unit is powered by a 15er circuit with Type NM cable installed in a plenum return space. What is the most critical violation? A. Use of NM cable in a plenum space. B. Undersized breaker for motor-driven equipment. C. Absence of offside protection on the branch circuit. D. Lack of bonding jumper for the indoor unit casing. Answer. Correct answer A. Use of NM cable in a plenum space. Explanation. Per NEC 300.22 C. Only wiring with a plenum-rated jacket like Type MC with F-pulparium or rated sheathing is allowed in environmental air handling spaces. Type NM cable is explicitly prohibited due to fire and smoke spread risks. This is a critical code violation regardless of load calculation. Question 15. An HVAC panel feeds multiple motor loads, and Inspector Adams observes that one feeder is protected with a 125-year breaker feeding multiple branch circuits, each with individual overload protection. What is required for code compliance in this setup? A. Time delay fuses must be used instead of breakers. Each motor branch must have short circuit and ground fault protection per NEC 430.52. C. The 125-year feeder breaker must be sized to the largest motor only. D. Group motor installations require a main disconnect at each motor. Answer. Correct answer. B. Each motor branch must have short circuit and ground fault protection per NEC 430.52. Explanation. NEC 430.52 mandates individual short circuit and ground fault protection for each motor branch circuit even if supplied from a common feeder. The feeder op must protect the conductors but cannot serve as the sole protection for all motors. Question 16. On inspection of a variable speed drive (VSD) powering an HVAC fan motor, Inspector Holt notes that the supply conductors are undersized per the motor FLA. The installer states that the VSD limits the current. What is the correct enforcement approach? A. Require conductor sizing per VSD out per amperage, not motor FLA. B. Accept the installation if motor overload protection is present. C. Condemn the feeder and require sizing per NEC 430.22. D. Accept if VSD manufacturer specifies smaller conductors in writing. Answer. Correct answer. D. Accept if VSD manufacturer specifies smaller conductors in writing. Explanation. NEC 430.122a allows conductor ampacity to be based on VSD full load input current, not motor nameplate FLA, provided the installation complies with manufacturer's instructions and listing. Men VSDs limit current inherently. However, documentation from the VSD manufacturer is essential for compliance. Question 17. Inspector Martin finds a condensate pump hardwired into a junction box serving the indoor HVAC unit, but the pump has no means of disconnect. The installer claims the branch circuit switch meets the requirement. What should the inspector decide? A. Require a local disconnecting means within sight of the pump. B. Accept the existing switch if it controls both units simultaneously. C. Approve if the pump is under 1 HP. D. Reject only if the pump is not listed for hardwired use. Answer. Correct answer. A. Require local disconnecting means within sight of the pump. Explanation. Per NEC 422.31b and 440.14, a disconnecting means must be within sight of the appliance or capable of being locked in the open position. Even small auxiliary devices like pumps require their own service disconnect unless connected to the same disconnecting means as the primary appliance and controlled simultaneously. Question 18. While inspecting HVAC equipment in a commercial data center, Inspector Robles notices that multiple low-voltage Class 2 control cables are bundled tightly in a 2-inch conduit. The bundle includes over 8 conductors. What NEC rule applies? A. NEC requires derating only if conductors exceed 100 B. Bundling Class 2 conductors is prohibited in any raceway. C. Bundled Class 2 conductors over 24 require derating for heating effects. D. Class 2 circuits are exempt from conduit fill calculations. Answer. Correct answer. C. Bundled Class 2 conductors over 24 require derating for heating effects. Explanation. NEC 725.144 and 310.15 C1 require ampacity adjustment factors for more than 24 current-carrying conductors in a raceway. While many Class 2 circuits are low current when bundled, the cumulative heating effect can be significant, necessary even for power-limited circuits when bundled tightly. Question 19. A new rooftop package unit has been installed with a motor nameplate indicating it is thermally protected. Inspector U notices that the branch circuit lacks a separate overload device. How should this be evaluated? A. Require overload protection per NEC 430.32 regardless of internal protection. B. Accept the thermal protection if marked as inherent. C. Reject the installation for lacking external thermal protection. D. Accept only if listed documentation confirms thermal trip settings. Answer. Correct answer. B. Accept the thermal protection if marked as inherent. Explanation. Per NEC 430.32a, 1 motors marked as thermally protected or inherently protected are exempt from needing external overload devices. These internal protections are recognized by all and listed with the motor. Verification must be through nameplate markings or documentation. Question 20. Inspector Fernandez observes an HVAC control panel that lacks identification labeling for voltage, phases, or disconnecting means. The panel is installed in a mechanical room with several similar panels. What action is required? A. Approve the installation if labeling is present inside the panel cover. B. Accept the panel if it is factory built and all listed. C. Reject the panel and require external markings per NEC 110.22 and 408.48. D. Approve only if the directory is posted nearby. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the panel and require external markings per NEC 110.22 and 408.48. Explanation. NEC 110.22a and 408.4a require clear identification of each panel board and circuit directory to ensure safe operation and maintenance. External markings must indicate panel function, voltage, phases, and disconnecting location. Lack of labeling in shared utility rooms is a serious hazard. Question 21. During inspection of a split HVAC system, Inspector Kelly finds the outdoor unit connected to a branch circuit protected by a 40-year breaker, but the nameplate IMECI is 28-year and MOP is listed as 35-year. What is the correct action? A. Accept the installation if the conductors are rated for 40-year. B. Approve since breakers are allowed to exceed MOP if within 125% of FLA. C. Reject the installation for exceeding the nameplate MOP. D. Approve if the unit has internal overload protection. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject the installation for exceeding the nameplate MOP. Explanation. Per NEC 440.22a, the branch circuit overcurrent device must not exceed the MOP listed on the nameplate. A 40-year breaker exceeds the 35-year maximum, making this a clear code violation. Manufacturers test equipment to fail safe within listed MOP limits. Question 22. Inspector Liu is verifying conductor sizing for a long branch circuit feeding a rooftop HVAC unit 250 feet from the panel. Voltage drop calculations indicate a 6% drop. What is the inspector's best course of action? A. Approve if the conductors are within ampacity limits. B. Require upsizing conductors to reduce voltage drop below 3%. C. Reject only if nameplate operation is affected. D. Accept if total voltage drop including feeder is under 10%. Answer. Correct answer. B. Require upsizing conductors to reduce voltage drop below 3%. Explanation. While not enforceable unless performance is affected, NEC informational note under 210.19a 1 recommends keeping voltage drop under 3% for branch circuits. For HVAC units which can suffer motor failures due to undervoltage, best practice dictates conductor upsizing. Inspectors often flag volt drops 3% on HVAC circuits. Question 23. On inspecting a condenser unit replacement, Inspector Miles finds that the disconnect switch is located behind the unit, requiring the technician to reach over rotating fan blades to operate it. What neck provision applies? A. Approve if the disconnect is within 6 feet and lockable. B. Approve if the unit is under 3 tons. C. Reject due to unsafe access to the disconnecting means. D. Reject only if not within sight of the equipment. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject due to unsafe access to the disconnecting means. Explanation. Per NEC 440.14, disconnects must be readily accessible and installed so they can be operated safely. Disconnect requiring reaching over moving parts is not considered accessible or safe and fails both code and OSHA safety principles. Question 24. An inspector is reviewing an installation where a rooftop HVAC unit is fed by a Type NM cable run through metallic conduit for protection on the roof. What is the most critical code issue? A. NM cable is not permitted in exposed outdoor locations. B. Type NM cannot be run through metallic conduit. C. Rooftop conduit runs require a separate deck. D. The conduit must be bonded at both ends to be compliant. Answer. Correct answer. A NM cable is not permitted in exposed outdoor locations. Explanation. Per NEC 334.12. B4. Type NM cable is not permitted in wet or damp locations, including rooftops. Even if inside conduit moisture can accumulate, and NM sheathing is not rated for such conditions. This is a common misapplication in HVAC retrofits. Question 25. Inspector Torres finds an equipment grounding conductor run inside EMT that is shared by multiple circuits. All conductors are properly derated and the raceway is continuous. What additional step is necessary for compliance? A. No additional steps are required. B. Install an additional egg in each circuit. C. Bond the raceway at each end with listed fittings. D. Verify the grounding conductor is identified green or green-yellow. Answer. Correct answer. D. Verify the grounding conductor is identified green or green-yellow. Explanation. According to NEC 250.119, grounding conductors must be identified by green or green with yellow stripes or marked appropriately at each termination. Proper color coding is critical for inspection and safety verification. Question 26. An inspector finds an HVAC control circuit installed with Class 2 thermostat wiring routed through the same raceway as 120 power conductors. What is the compliance issue? A. Class 2 circuits must be in separate enclosures. B. Mixing low voltage and power conductors is prohibited unless insulation matches. C. Thermostat wiring is exempt from raceway rules. D. This is compliant if the low voltage wiring is twisted pair. Answer. Correct answer. B. Mixing low voltage and power conductors is prohibited unless insulation matches. Explanation. Per NEC 300.3 C1 and 725.136 A. Class 2 circuits may not occupy the same raceway as power conductors unless all conductors have insulation rated for the highest voltage present. Thermostat wires usually do not meet this requirement. Question 27. During inspection, an HVAC unit is supplied by a fuse disconnect with no opt in the panel. The fuses are rated 60A, but the unit nameplate MOP is 50A. What is the most appropriate inspector response? A. Accept the installation due to fuse protection at the disconnect. B. Approve if conductors are rated for 60A. C. Reject for exceeding MOP listed on the unit nameplate. D. Approve only if time delay fuses are used. Answer. Correct answer. C. Reject for exceeding MOP listed on the unit nameplate. Explanation. NEC 440.22 and the equipment listing require ops to not exceed MOP on the nameplate. Fuses in the disconnect must comply with the MOP. Using 60A fuses for a 50A rated unit violates both the NEC and OL listing. Question 20. Inspector Ramos reviews a control panel for multiple HVAC units. The panel has no terminal torque markings or legend plate. Lugs are standard set screw type. What is required for compliance? A. Approve if manufacturer installation instructions are on site. B. Reject for not providing torque values as required by NEC 110.14 D.C. Accept if the panel is listed. D. Approve if the connections are not field installed. Answer. Correct answer. B. Reject for not providing torque values as required by NEC 110.14 D. Explanation. NEC 110.14 D requires all field-made terminations to be tightened to the manufacturer's specified torque. If no values are marked or instructions not provided, this is a violation. Torque ensures safe electrical connections and prevents overheating. Question 29. Inspector Chu observes that the three-phase HVAC unit has reverse phase rotation upon startup. The installer offers to reverse null at the disconnect. What should the inspector verify? A. That phase reversal is corrected before energizing. B. That correction is made only at the panel. C. That the disconnect has signage noting the reversal. D. That motor is rated for bidirectional operation. Answer. Correct answer. A. That phase reversal is corrected before energizing. Explanation. HVAC compressors and fan motors can be damaged by incorrect phase rotation. NEC doesn't specify the method, but the inspector must ensure that phase rotation is corrected prior to final inspection and before equipment is placed into service. Question 30. An inspector notes that the service technician added a 24th transformer for an aftermarket humidifier inside an HVAC furnace cabinet and wired its primary side to the line terminals of the furnace disconnect. What's the issue? A. Control transformers must be installed in listed enclosures. B. Transformer secondary requires overcurrent protection. C. Connection to line terminals violates listing of furnace. D. Aftermarket transformers must be mounted externally. Answer. Correct answer. C. Connection to line terminals violates listing of furnace. Explanation. Connecting additional devices to line terminals of listed HVAC equipment violates NEC 110.3 B and the manufacturer's listing instructions unless expressly allowed. Modifying internal wiring can void all listing and create fire hazards.